Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, today let's talk about the Sweet Commander's greatest weaknesses. And we're going to group them all together, and we're not specifically going to talk about counters to each one of them. Although I guess if I were to say something, then the counter to each Sweet Commander would probably be something like water. But this video is going to go in a direction perhaps you didn't see coming by necessarily reading the title, which is, you know, when we came into Whole Cake Island, you knew that the Straw-Hats weren't going to take on the Big Mom Pirates, that the Big Mom Pirates are a Yonko crew. And given that we'd already seen Jack fight, you could suspect that Luffy with half of his crew wouldn't be able to go into a Yonko's territory, take on a Yonko and all of their Sweet Commanders. This was supposed to be a rescue operation, sneak in, grab Sanji, and then leave. But as we could have suspected before the arc and as it has played out, that wasn't really the case, and you are left with Luffy in a situation in which he really shouldn't have gotten out of, but yet was somehow able to. And specifically when dealing with the Sweet Commanders, many of you ask why. How exactly can Oda logically write Luffy sneaking into Big Mom's territory and find a way past all of Big Mom's Sweet Commanders and Big Mom? There are some people out there who are even complaining that it just doesn't make sense, and I think it all goes back to the Sweet Commander's biggest weaknesses. Or for that matter, the greatest weakness of the Big Mom Pirates. And so I want to make this known, guys. I believe that all of Big Mom's Sweet Commanders, even Big Mom herself, are extremely overpowered physically. In pure combat, I'm not certain if anyone that is an ally of the Straw-Hats or even Luffy himself can take them in a one-on-one fight. The closest matchup would have been the matchup that we saw earlier between Cracker and Luffy. This is of course assuming that Luffy was not holding back during the fight versus Cracker, which even versus Cracker, which lasted several hours, Luffy received help from Nami, as well as the homies which Nami was controlling with Big Mom's Vivre card. So anyway guys, back to the question, how does any of this make sense? How exactly could Oda logically justify Luffy getting to where he is now? And I think the reason for every one of these Sweet Commanders, maybe even the Big Mom Pirates as a whole, the reason why they may not have lived up to our expectations for a Yonko is because of their personalities, mental weaknesses, and the way that Big Mom rules her crew. I think that there are some out there who would paint these as conveniences that should not be applauded, but I really think that Oda was looking for a way to keep the power scaling correct in One Piece while allowing the Straw Hat crew to be able to do what it is that they're doing now. And so rather than give Luffy some absurd power up here when half the crew isn't even there, he found a very clever way out. And so what exactly am I talking about? Well, let's start off with Cracker, who we saw fight the most, given that he had essentially a one-on-one fight versus Luffy, although much of that fight was off-screened. Oda revealed something about Cracker for that fight to make sense. He revealed that Cracker despised pain and went out of his way to avoid pain at all costs. And although it wasn't stated explicitly, we can derive from this that Cracker is someone who cannot take a punch. He was a glass cannon. And so guys, he can still be of the rank of Sweet Commander and be really strong because he has developed all of his time to ensuring that no one ever gets close enough to actually attempt to hurt him. He has all of these biscuit shields, one of which that he wears around pretty much at all times. There seems to be no limit to this ability, and so because of this, he's strong just based on his defense alone. So in order to win that fight, Luffy really only had to seek out an opportunity to damage him, and that is why Cracker was essentially one-shotted. And it certainly helped that Cracker, being overconfident, decided to expose himself to Luffy, seeing that Luffy didn't really have any way of getting at him, and completely underestimating Tank Man. And Oda cultivated the situation and gave Luffy the perfect tools in order to overcome Cracker's one major weakness, which at its heart is nothing more than a mental weakness, a flaw in his personality. And you'll actually, I believe, see this trend continue as we talk about the other Sweet Commanders. So let's talk about Smoothie. A lot of people are so disappointed with what Smoothie has done in the Whole Cake Island arc, being what we presume to be the second strongest Sweet Commander, maybe third in command of the Big Mom Pirates behind Big Mom and Katakuri, and during this arc she has done literally nothing. besides just be there and exist. And so guys, aside from our disappointment, can this actually be justified? Has Oda given us any clues to perhaps understand why Smoothie has done nothing? And I really think that he has. And again, this will go back to a flaw in her personality. And so guys, we've seen Smoothie off and on at various parts of the Whole Cake Island arc, but you will notice in every situation in which she appears, she has never once taken command. She has never once acted upon a course of action that she herself has decided. Why did Smoothie appear in the Poneglyph Chamber in attempts to stop Pedro and Brook or anyone else from stealing the Poneglyph? Well, it's because Baron Samago suggested it and asked for her help. So in this case, the one actually taking command is Tamago, and we can see this later. After Pedro created a distraction, Brook snuck into the Poneglyph room while everyone wasn't looking, locked the door behind him. And so then what does Smoothie do? She doesn't act. She instead calls Tamago to ask him what she should do. She even straight up asks him if it's okay to kill Brook, to which Tamago says no, most definitely Big Mom will want to add Brook to her collection. And so guys, immediately after this scene, all the way back in about chapter 848, you will already know something about Smoothie, which is that Smoothie is a follower. She's not a leader. And so a lot of people wanted Smoothie to play a bigger role during the actual tea party, but keep in mind that all of these things happen in a moment of seconds. There wasn't a lot of time for the Big Mom Pirates to organize and to communicate, and because of that, Smoothie didn't play a big role, all because of her personality. And so guys, in relation to this, I think that there's two other things that are of importance, which is that while we would like to believe that the Sweet Commanders are the actual leaders of the Big Mom Pirates below Big Mom, it's not really actually the case. I think the argument can be made that Katakuri definitely performs that role from time to time. We'll talk about Katakuri later. But usually when you're talking about the leaders of the Big Mom Pirates, you're talking about someone like Baron Samago or Mont d'Or. And so this tells us something interesting about the Sweet Commanders, is that the Sweet Commanders are not asked to lead. That we can presume that the reason that they have obtained these roles is simply due to their fighting prowess, their fighting combat abilities, and that's it. And you know, Oda has even given us clues as to justify this as well. A lot of people would be like, oh, the Sweet Commanders have to be leaders. In what world does that make sense? And guys, it makes sense within the Big Mom Pirates, with a woman, Big Mom, the Yonko, the leader of the Big Mom Pirates, essentially wanting to control everything. She micromanages everything. Big Mom most probably has never once taught any of her children to think for themselves, because she specifically tells them that I will do all the thinking for you. And most probably Big Mom won't reward any of her children who act outside of what they're commanded to act. So then you are left with a hierarchy, a structure, which promotes those who follow Big Mom's commands the best, i.e. those who are the strongest. And thus, from all of this, which Oda has, in my opinion, cleverly laid out through the story, you can justify why Smoothie, up until this point in time, has done nothing. And so guys, now let's get into Katakuri. And so Katakuri is by far the person who is carrying his weight within the Big Mom Pirates the most. He is simultaneously quick to act and completely overpowered. But to take this a little bit back to Smoothie, I also believe that he is a terrible leader. And the main reason is because he lacks the ability to communicate. Despite the ability to see into the future for some amount of time, he, for the most part, fails at making plans and communicating with other people about how to avoid what will inevitably happen, and rather takes it upon himself. We can see this during the tea party, where Smoothie specifically asked Katakuri what was up after he saw the image of failing to shoot Sanji. But what does Katakuri do after this? He does nothing. He says nothing. And he just continues to do things like this. Like just before the Strads jumped out of the cake, or right before Big Mom starts yelling. Katakuri knows what's going to happen before it happens. We know for a fact he knows because Oda tells us. We see his thoughts and we see him talking to himself, but he doesn't do a great job of communicating it to other people. He doesn't do a good job of leading them and informing them of what they should be preparing for. I almost want to call it arrogance. Arrogance that Katakuri believes that he can handle everything by himself. When he saw that the priest was going to miss Sanji, he was the one who was going to try and take out Sanji. When he noticed that Luffy was going after the portrait of Mother Carmel, what does he do? He tries to stop Luffy. And then when confronted about it by Big Mom, he then explains that he wasn't attempting to necessarily defend Big Mom as much as he was trying to defend the portrait. But he never spreads the word to everyone else to defend the portrait with their lives. Or even going to the recent moments where he's on the Straw Hat ship. He sits there quietly, and you can see him contemplating about what is going on, but at no point in time does he tell Perospero about his suspicions. He doesn't even straight up tell them why it is that he's so concerned that the Straw Hats might end up making it to the ship. And then when the Straw Hats finally make it through the forest, he doesn't tell all of the soldiers what's going to happen, he just tells them to leave. Now this is better than normal, but still, specific information here, given the time that they had, would have been prudent. Now this last one is a bit speculative because we don't know if Katakuri actually foresaw this or not, but still I'm curious with Katakuri's presence how exactly he allowed his brother to get exploded by Pedro. The absolute very least that he could have said to everyone present, including his brother, is yo, explosion, huge explosion incoming. But as usual, Katakuri says nothing. And for me, it's just another example of how the Straw Hats got to this situation, which is that the Sweet Commanders and the leaders of the Big Mom Pirates having personality flaws that could be exploited. And guys, if I'm completely honest, I think that what Oda is trying to convey here with the Big Mom Pirates, the Sweet Commanders, and Big Mom herself is that Big Mom has a responsibility as a mother, as a parent, that she, for the most part, has ignored. And I really find it to be extremely interesting. It almost feels like, unlike raising them and teaching them, Big Mom leaves them to raise and teach themselves. And it seems like the only thing that they really truly have learned is that they should always listen to Big Mom. But it's just so fascinating because ever since the Tea Party, Big Mom hasn't been able to lead them. Big Mom hasn't been able to order them. And in her absence, what you are left with is a whole lot of dysfunction. Which I think makes a whole lot of sense, given the context of the unique characters within the story. And I could probably talk about other things, but I feel like I've covered other things in the past, there isn't really any need. I really wanted to mainly focus on the Sweet Commanders and their personality flaws, it seems, which has made it easier for these Straw Hats to find a way to still be alive. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Just share your thoughts. Like the video if you liked the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to check out links to Discord and Patreon in the description. Thank you to all of my Patreons. You guys are awesome. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always, guys, have a wonderful day.